Zanari Ambassador Lara's mocking laughter echoes through the United Nations Assembly Hall, her words cutting deep into the pride of every human delegate present. Earth, a primitive death world, unfit for civilized species. How quaint that you've managed to survive here at all. The chamber erupts in chaos. Diplomats shout in outrage. Translators scramble to keep up with the barrage of angry responses, and security personnel rush to maintain order. In the midst of this interstellar incident, United Nations Space Command Officer Philip Tucker receives an urgent communiqué. His new mission: escort the insufferable Zanari ambassador on a mandatory cultural exchange to salvage alien-human relations. Philip's jaw clenches as he approaches Lara, her iridescent scales shimmering under the harsh lights of the assembly hall. Ambassador, I'm Officer Tucker. I'll be your guide during your stay on our primitive planet. The words taste bitter in his mouth. Lara's multifaceted eyes narrow. How generous of your species to offer a tour of this hostile rock. I suppose I have no choice but to accept. Days later, their shuttle touches down on a floating platform in the heart of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. As the airlock hisses open, Lara steps out, her posture rigid with barely concealed disdain. But as her gaze falls upon the vast expanse of blue stretching to the horizon, something in her demeanor shifts. What is this? Lara's voice wavers, her usual haughty tone replaced by genuine awe. Philip can't suppress a smirk. This ambassador is an ocean, one of many on our primitive death world. Lara moves to the edge of the platform, her eyes wide as she takes in the crystal-clear waters teeming with life. Schools of vibrant fish dart beneath the surface. Coral formations create an underwater metropolis, and in the distance a sea turtle glides effortlessly through the waves. Impossible, Lara whispers. Such diversity, such beauty. How can this exist on a death world? Philip steps beside her, feeling a twinge of pride. Earth is full of surprises, Ambassador. Care to take a closer look? Before Lara can respond, a low, haunting song fills the air. A pod of humpback whales breaches the surface, their massive bodies arcing gracefully before crashing back into the sea. Lara gasps, reaching out instinctively. Her hand brushes against Philip's arm, and for a moment they share a look of wonder. The spell is broken by an urgent beep from Philip's communicator. Officer Tucker, we have a situation. Ocean temperatures are rising at an alarming rate. You need to evacuate the ambassador immediately. Philip turns to relay the message, but Lara is already shaking her head. No, I want to stay. I need to understand what's happening here. Ambassador, my orders are clear. We need to leave now. Lara's eyes flash with determination. Your oceans are in danger. I can't just turn my back on this. Not now that I've seen... Another beep interrupts them. This time, it's Lara's communicator. The harsh voice of the Zanari High Commander fills the air. Ambassador Lara, you are to return to the embassy at once. This exchange has gone on long enough. Philip watches as conflict plays across Lara's features. He feels his own internal struggle intensify. His mission is to protect her, but allowing her to stay could cause a diplomatic nightmare. Yet as he looks out at the vast ocean and remembers the shared moment of awe, he realizes something has fundamentally changed between them. What's it going to be, Ambassador? Philip asks, his voice low and urgent. Do we follow orders, or do we dive deeper into this mystery? Lara meets his gaze, her earlier mockery replaced by a newfound respect and curiosity. I think, Officer Tucker, it's time I learned what your death world is really made of. As they prepare to investigate the looming ocean crisis, Philip can't help but feel that this is just the beginning of a much larger adventure, one that will challenge not only their duties, but also their growing feelings for each other. Philip and Lara exchange a determined look as they prepared to delve into the mystery of the rising ocean temperatures. Their shuttle streaked across the sky, leaving the Great Barrier Reef behind as they headed towards a remote research station on the Australian coast. As they approached their destination, Philip couldn't help but notice the change in Lara's demeanor. Gone was the haughty ambassador who had mocked Earth as a primitive death world. In her place sat a being filled with curiosity and concern for the planet she had so quickly dismissed. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad adjacent to a cluster of sleek, white buildings perched on the edge of a cliff. As they disembarked, a man in a lab coat hurried to greet them. "Officer Tucker, Ambassador Lara," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Marcus Chen, lead marine biologist here at the station. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Philip shook the scientist's hand. "We're here to help, Dr. Chen. What can you tell us about the situation?" Dr. Chen's face grew grim as he led them towards the main research facility. "It's worse than we initially thought. The water temperatures are rising at an unprecedented rate, causing widespread coral bleaching. If this continues, we're looking at the collapse of the entire reef ecosystem." Inside the facility, holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time data from various parts of the reef. Lara moved closer to one of the screens, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the scrolling numbers. "This rate of change," she murmured. "It's not natural, is it?" Dr. Chen shook his head. "No, it's not. We believe it's a result of accelerated climate change, but the speed at which it's happening is alarming." Philip stepped forward. "What can we do to help?" "We need to assess the damage firsthand," Dr. Chen replied. "I was planning a diving expedition to document the extent of the bleaching. Would you be willing to join me?" Lara's scales shimmered with excitement. "Absolutely!" As they suited up for the dive, Philip couldn't help but notice the way Lara's body moved with fluid grace. Her Zanari physiology seemed perfectly adapted for aquatic environments. Once in the water, Philip was struck by the eerie quiet of the reef. Where there should have been a vibrant underwater city teeming with life, large swaths of coral stood stark white, devoid of color and movement. Lara swam beside him, her movements effortless. To Philip's surprise, she showed no signs of needing to surface for air. As they descended deeper, where the sunlight barely penetrated, Lara's body began to glow with a soft, bioluminescent light. Dr. Chen's voice crackled through their communication devices. "Ambassador, your bioluminescence is incredible. It's allowing us to document areas we couldn't normally see in these conditions." Lara's light pulsed in response, illuminating a vast expanse of bleached coral. The sight was both beautiful and heartbreaking. As they explored, Philip found himself drawn to Lara's graceful movements and the way her light danced across the reef. Their eyes met through their masks, and for a moment the rest of the world faded away. The moment was broken by Dr. Chen's urgent voice. "We need to surface. There's a communication coming in for both of you." Back on the research station, Philip and Lara hurried to the communications center. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of the Zanari High Commander. "Ambassador Lara," the commander's voice boomed, "your continued presence on Earth has become a diplomatic incident. Some factions are accusing the humans of holding you against your will. You are ordered to return immediately. Failure to comply within 24 hours will result in the severing of all diplomatic ties with Earth." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Philip turned to Lara, his heart racing. "Ambassador, we can arrange for your immediate return if that's what you want." Lara's eyes flashed with willpower. "No, I won't abandon this mission. What's happening here is too important." Before Philip could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Dr. Chen rushed in, his face pale. "A severe storm is approaching. We need to secure the facility." As they raced to protect vital equipment and specimens, the sky outside darkened ominously. Wind howled around the buildings, and rain lashed against the windows with increasing fury. Suddenly, a deafening crack split the air. One of the outer buildings had been struck by lightning, its protective shields failing. "There are researchers trapped inside," Dr. Chen shouted over the storm's roar. Without hesitation, Lara sprinted towards the damaged building. Philip watched in awe as she effortlessly lifted a fallen beam, allowing the trapped scientists to escape. As Lara returned, soaked but unharmed, the main power generator failed with a thunderous boom. Emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie red glow throughout the facility. Dr. Chen's face was grim. "The backup generators are in the lower level, but it's completely flooded. Without power, we're defenseless against the rising waters." Philip stepped forward. "I'll go. My military training—" "No," Lara interrupted. "I can stay underwater longer. It has to be me." As they argued, a technician called out in panic. "Sensors are detecting a massive tidal wave heading our way. We have minutes at most." Philip and Lara locked eyes, the weight of the moment heavy between them. The fate of the research station, years of crucial climate data, and possibly their own lives hung in the balance. The choice they made now would impact not just their relationship, but the future of human-Zanari relations in Earth's marine ecosystems. The storm raged on, time ticking away as they faced their most critical decision yet. "We don't have time to argue," Philip said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to work together if we're going to save this station and everyone in it." Lara nodded, her scales shimmering with willpower. "Lead the way, Officer Tucker." Without another word, they plunged into the flooded lower level. The icy water shocked Philip's system, but he pushed forward, guided by Lara's natural bioluminescence. Debris swirled around them as they navigated the submerged corridors, fighting against the rising current. As they reached the backup generators, Philip's training kicked in. He began the complex process of resetting the system, his fingers working deftly despite the numbing cold. Lara hovered nearby, her light illuminating the control panel. Suddenly, the station shuddered violently. The approaching tidal wave had struck. A massive piece of equipment broke loose, pinning Philip against the wall. He struggled, panic rising as he felt his oxygen tank crack under the pressure. Lara's eyes widened in alarm. Without hesitation, she swam to Philip's aid. Her powerful Zanari muscles strained as she lifted the equipment, freeing him. But as she pushed it aside, a jagged edge caught her arm, opening a deep gash. Philip reached for her, concern etched on his face, but Lara shook her head. "Finish the job," she mouthed, gesturing to the generators. Ignoring the burning in his lungs, Philip turned back to the controls. His vision blurred as he worked, acutely aware of his dwindling oxygen supply. Just as spots began to dance before his eyes, the generators hummed to life. Power surged through the station, and the familiar whine of the shields activating filled the air. They'd done it, but they weren't out of danger yet. Philip grabbed Lara's uninjured arm and kicked hard towards the surface. They burst from the water, gasping for air, just as the full force of the tidal wave struck the station. The shields held, but barely. The entire structure groaned under the immense pressure. As the immediate danger passed, Philip and Lara dragged themselves onto the main level. The human researchers rushed to their aid, expressions of awe and gratitude on their faces. Dr. Chen approached, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You did it. You actually did it. I can't believe—" His words were cut off by the sharp beep of an incoming transmission. Admiral James Hawthorne's stern face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "Officer Tucker, we have a situation," the Admiral said without preamble. "The Zanari High Command has recalled their diplomatic corps and mobilized their fleet. We have multiple warships on an intercept course with Earth." Philip felt his heart sink. He glanced at Lara, who was having her arm tended to by one of the station's medics. Her face had paled, the iridescence of her scales dulled by shock and pain. "Your orders are to escort Ambassador Lara to the nearest space elevator immediately," Admiral Hawthorne continued. "We need to get her off-planet if we have any hope of de-escalating this situation." "But sir," Philip began, thinking of the ocean crisis and the progress they'd made. "That's an order, Officer Tucker," the Admiral snapped. "The fate of Earth-Zanari relations hangs in the balance. You leave immediately." The transmission cut off, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Philip turned to Lara, conflict evident in his eyes. "Ambassador, we need to go." Lara shook her head, wincing as the medic finished bandaging her arm. "No, I can't leave now. We've made a breakthrough here. The coral—" "I'm sorry," Philip interrupted, his voice soft but firm. "We don't have a choice." As they prepared to depart, Dr. Chen rushed up to them, his face flushed with excitement. "Wait, you can't leave yet. The data from your dive, combined with Lara's bioluminescent interaction with the coral, it's revolutionary. We might have found a solution to the bleaching crisis." Philip hesitated, torn between his duty and the potential to save Earth's oceans. Lara's eyes lit up, her earlier pain forgotten in the face of this new discovery. Before they could discuss further, an explosion rocked the station. Alarms blared as security feeds showed a group of armed individuals storming the facility. "Eco-terrorists!" Dr. Chen gasped, recognizing their leader. "That's Ezra Stone. He's been after our research for months." Philip's military training took over. He grabbed Lara's uninjured arm, pulling her towards the exit. "We need to move now." As they raced towards the transport vehicle, the sound of gunfire erupted behind them. Philip's mind raced, weighing their options. The space elevator was their official destination, but with Lara injured and the terrorists in pursuit, it was a risky journey. They reached the vehicle just as a bullet pinged off its armored exterior. Philip shoved Lara inside and leapt into the driver's seat, gunning the engine. As they sped away from the research station, he could see Ezra Stone in the rearview mirror, shouting orders to his followers. Lara's voice was tight with pain and frustration. "Philip, we can't leave. The research—" "I know," he cut her off, his knuckles tightening on the steering wheel. "But right now, we need to focus on staying alive and keeping you out of their hands." As they raced along the coastal road, Philip's mind whirled with impossible choices. Head for the space elevator as ordered, potentially triggering an interstellar war, return to the research station to protect the breakthrough that could save Earth's oceans, or find a safe house to tend to Lara's wounds and regroup. Behind them, the eco-terrorists gave chase, their vehicles gaining ground. Ahead, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, promising more chaos. And somewhere above, Zanari warships approached, their intentions unknown. Philip gritted his teeth and pressed the accelerator, plunging them into uncertainty. Whatever he decided, he knew one thing for sure. The next few hours would change everything. Philip's mind raced as he weighed his options. The coastal road offered no refuge, and the space elevator was too risky with eco-terrorists in pursuit. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "Hold on," he said to Lara, swerving the vehicle sharply off the main road. They bumped along a narrow path leading back to the research station. "What are you doing?" Lara asked, wincing as the rough terrain jostled her injured arm. "Taking a chance," Philip replied, his eyes fixed on the approaching silhouette of the station. As they neared the facility, Philip spotted what he was looking for. The sleek form of an experimental submarine docked at the station's private pier. He'd overheard Dr. Chen discussing it earlier, boasting about its advanced stealth capabilities. Screeching to a halt near the pier, Philip leapt out of the vehicle. "Dr. Chen!" he shouted, spotting the scientist emerging from the main building with a group of researchers. "We need that submarine, now!" Chen's eyes widened as he took in the situation. "But it's not fully tested." "No time!" Philip cut him off. "Grab whatever data you can on the coral bleaching solution and get on board, now!" As Chen and his team scrambled to collect their research, Philip helped Lara into the submarine. The sound of approaching vehicles spurred them into action. "Hurry," Philip urged as Chen and 4 other researchers piled in, arms full of hard drives and sample cases. Just as Ezra Stone and his eco-terrorists breached the station's outer defenses, Philip sealed the submarine's hatch. He slid into the pilot's seat, familiarizing himself with the controls. "Everyone strap in," he ordered, engaging the engines. The submarine slipped beneath the waves just as gunfire peppered the surface where they had been moments before. Philip guided the vessel deeper, using the coral formations of the Great Barrier Reef for cover. Inside the cramped quarters, tension ran high. Dr. Chen clutched his precious data, while Lara sat rigid, her eyes closed in concentration. "The vessel's stealth technology should mask our presence," Chen explained, his voice tight with stress. "But we need to put some distance between us and the station." Philip nodded, focusing on navigating the underwater labyrinth of coral. Suddenly, Lara gasped. Her scales began to pulse with a soft, ethereal light. "Lara?" Philip asked, concerned. "I can't control it," she said, her voice strained. "It's responding to the coral somehow." The submarine was bathed in the glow of Lara's bioluminescence. Through the viewports, they watched in awe as the light spread, reflecting off the coral in a dazzling display. "Incredible," Chen breathed, fumbling for a camera. The light show had an unexpected benefit. The pursuing eco-terrorists, visible on their long-range sensors, seemed disoriented by the sudden illumination. As they pushed deeper into unexplored territory, The submarine's sensors began to ping urgently. "What is that?" one of the researchers asked, pointing to a readout. Philip studied the screen. "Some kind of anomaly in a trench ahead. It's deep, really deep." Chen leaned forward, excitement overriding his fear. "We've never been able to explore those depths before. This could be—" His words were cut off by a distant boom. On the sensors, they could see the eco-terrorists deploying depth charges. "They're trying to force us to surface," Philip growled. He made a split-second decision. "We're going into the trench." The submarine descended, plunging into the inky blackness of the unexplored depths. As they went deeper, the pressure outside intensified. The hull creaked ominously. "Look!" Lara exclaimed, pointing out the viewport. Around them, a previously unknown ecosystem came into view. Bizarre creatures floated past, their bodies adapted to the crushing pressure. At the center of it all, a series of hydrothermal vents spewed superheated water, supporting a thriving community of organisms. "This is unprecedented," Chen said, his voice filled with wonder. "These life forms, they seem completely resistant to the effects of ocean warming." As the scientists marveled at the discovery, Philip noticed warning lights flashing on the control panel. The life support systems were struggling under the immense pressure. "Dr. Chen," he said urgently, "we need to collect samples and get out of here. Fast." Chen nodded, mobilizing his team. They worked quickly, using the submarine's external sampling arms to collect specimens and data. Just as they finished, a series of explosions rocked the trench. The eco-terrorists had followed them down, still deploying depth charges. The blast triggered underwater landslides, and before Philip could react, the submarine was trapped beneath a pile of debris. Alarms blared as oxygen levels began to drop. The hull integrity was compromised, tiny leaks allowing water to seep in. Philip's mind raced, searching for a solution. Lara placed a hand on his arm, her eyes glowing with perseverance. "I have an idea," she said, "but it's risky." As Philip listened to her plan, he realized that their next actions would determine not just their own survival, but potentially the fate of Earth's oceans and the future of human-Zanari relations. With time running out and danger pressing in from all sides, they prepared to take a leap into the unknown, deep in the uncharted abyss of Earth's oceans. Oceans and the future of human-Zanari relations. With time running out and danger pressing in from all sides, they prepared to take a leap into the unknown, deep in the uncharted abyss of Earth's oceans. Lara's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she placed her hands on the submarine's hull. "I can communicate with the creatures down here," she explained, her voice strained with concentration. "If we can harness their bioluminescence, we might be able to create a distraction and find a way out." Philip nodded, his trust in Lara overriding his skepticism. "Do it!" As Lara closed her eyes, focusing her energy, the submarine's interior filled with a pulsating, ethereal light. Outside, the darkness of the trench came alive with a dazzling display of bioluminescence. Strange, serpentine creatures and floating jellies began to swarm around them, their lights forming intricate patterns. Dr. Chen and his team watched in awe, frantically recording data and capturing footage of the unprecedented event. The eco-terrorists, visible on their long-range sensors, seemed to pull back, confused by the sudden light show. Taking advantage of the distraction, Philip maneuvered the submarine's arms to clear the debris trapping them. With a groan of protesting metal, they broke free. "Hang on!" Philip shouted as he engaged the engines at full power. The submarine shot upwards through the swirling mass of bioluminescent sea life, leaving the eco-terrorists far behind. As they ascended, the hull creaked ominously under the rapidly changing pressure. Warning lights flashed across the control panel, but Philip kept his focus on the surface, now visible as a faint glimmer of light above them. With a final surge of power, they breached the surface, the submarine bobbing violently in the choppy waves. Philip immediately established a communication link with Admiral Hawthorne. "Admiral, this is Officer Tucker. We've surfaced and Ambassador Lara is safe," Philip reported, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "Thank God. What's your status?" As Philip gave a quick rundown of their situation, Dr. Chen interrupted, his eyes wild with excitement. "Sir, we've made an incredible discovery. You need to see this footage immediately." They transmitted the data they'd collected, including the video of Lara's bioluminescent communication with the deep-sea creatures. The Admiral's eyes widened as he watched. This changes everything," Hawthorne muttered. "I'm patching this through to the Zenari fleet now." Minutes ticked by in tense silence as they waited for a response. Finally, a new face appeared on the screen, the stern visage of Commander Zorax of the Zenari fleet. "We have reviewed your findings," Zorax stated, his alien features unreadable. "This evidence of interspecies cooperation and the potential of your ocean's ecosystem is intriguing. We agree to a temporary ceasefire to allow for further investigation." A collective sigh of relief filled the submarine. Philip felt a weight lift from his shoulders, only to be replaced by the realization of the enormous task that lay ahead. Within hours, a sleek, high-speed vessel arrived to extract them. As they were ushered aboard, Philip caught sight of their destination, a massive underwater structure barely visible beneath the waves. "Welcome to Poseidon's Haven," their escort announced, "the most advanced underwater research facility on Earth." As they descended into the hidden complex, Philip marveled at the state-of-the-art laboratories and the mix of human and Zenari personnel working side by side. Dr. Chen and his team were immediately whisked away to begin analyzing their samples, leaving Philip and Lara to be debriefed. Admiral Hawthorne met them in a conference room, his face grave. "We have a new situation," he began without preamble. "Intelligence suggests that Ezra Stone and his eco-terrorists have obtained partial information about your deep-sea discovery. We believe they plan to weaponize it." Philip felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you need us to do, sir?" "You and Ambassador Lara will be part of a joint human Zenari task force," Hawthorne explained. "Your mission is to track down Stone and prevent him from acquiring the full research data. The consequences, if he succeeds, could be catastrophic." As they delved into the mission details, Philip couldn't help but notice the change in Lara. The injury on her arm was healing, leaving behind a faintly glowing, bioluminescent scar. She caught him looking and smiled softly. "It seems I'm adapting to your world in more ways than one," she said, her voice tinged with wonder. Their quiet moment was interrupted by an alert from one of the technicians. "Sir, we've located Stone's hideout. It's an abandoned oil rig in the North Sea." Hawthorne nodded grimly. "Prepare for a covert operation. We move at 0600. As the room emptied, Philip and Lara found themselves alone. The weight of their shared experiences and the looming danger hung heavy in the air between them. Without a word, they moved towards each other, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. For a moment, the world faded away. No impending ecological disaster, no interstellar tensions, just the two of them, finally acknowledging the connection that had been building since their first meeting. The blaring of alarms shattered their intimate moment. Red lights flashed throughout the facility as a voice over the intercom announced, "Security breach! All personnel to battle stations!" Philip and Lara shared a look of commitment before racing out of the room. As they ran towards the command center, they could hear the sounds of chaos erupting throughout Poseidon's Haven. Somehow, Stone and his eco-terrorists had found them, and the underwater facility was under attack. As they reached the main hub, screens showed multiple breaches in the outer defenses. Stone's forces, armed with a mixture of human and Zenari technology, were pouring in from all sides. "How did they find us?" Lara asked, her voice tight with concern. Philip's mind raced, assessing the situation. "It doesn't matter now. We need to protect the research and the scientists. Dr. Chen and his team are the priority." They quickly formulated a plan, utilizing their unique combination of skills. As they prepared to defend Poseidon's Haven against the invading forces, Philip realized that this battle would determine not just the fate of Earth's oceans, but the future of human-Zenari relations, and perhaps the future of his relationship with Lara. With a shared nod of understanding, they plunged into the fray, ready to face whatever challenges the depths of the ocean and their enemies might throw at them. With a shared nod of understanding, Philip and Lara plunged into the fray, ready to face whatever challenges the depths of the ocean and their enemies might throw at them. Alarms blared as they raced through the corridors of Poseidon's Haven, the facility's emergency lights casting an eerie red glow. Philip's military training kicked in, his eyes scanning for threats as they moved. Lara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with intensity, her alien senses on high alert. They encountered their first group of Stone's eco-terrorists at a junction. Philip dropped into a crouch, drawing his sidearm in one fluid motion. Lara vaulted over him, her lithe form a blur as she engaged the intruders. Her Zenari strength and agility were a sight to behold, her movements graceful yet lethal. "Left!" Philip shouted, warning Lara of an attacker. She ducked, allowing Philip to take the shot. The teamwork between them was seamless, their earlier intimate moment translating into an almost telepathic connection in battle. As they fought their way through the facility, Philip's comm unit crackled to life. "Tucker, this is Chen. Stone's forces are closing in on my lab. The deep sea data—" "We're on it, Doc," Philip responded, his voice tense. He turned to Lara, their eyes meeting in silent communication. "We need to split up. Can you handle Chen's lab?" Lara nodded, her eyes glowing with persistence. "Go. I'll secure the data." They parted ways, Lara sprinting towards the research wing, while Philip headed for the facility's core. As he ran, he noticed a change in the ambient pressure. His ears popped, and he felt a growing weight on his chest. Rounding a corner, Philip came face to face with the source, a sleek, cylindrical device humming with energy. Stone stood before it, a triumphant grin on his face. "It's over, Tucker," Stone called out, his voice filled with zealous conviction. "This pressure manipulator will crush this abomination of a facility. The oceans will finally be free from human interference." Philip raised his weapon, but Stone was quicker. He lunged forward, knocking the gun aside. The two men grappled, trading blows in the confined space. Stone fought with the desperation of a true believer, but Philip's training gave him the edge. As they struggled, Philip's mind raced, piecing together a plan to disable the device. He feinted left, then drove his elbow into Stone's solar plexus. As the eco-terrorist doubled over, Philip made a dash for the pressure manipulator's control panel. Meanwhile, Lara had reached Dr. Chen's lab. The scene inside was chaos. Overturned equipment, shattered glass, and a group of Stone's followers attempting to access a heavily secured terminal. Lara's body coiled like a spring, then released. She moved through the room with inhuman speed, her form blurring as she engaged the intruders. Her strikes were precise and powerful, each movement calculated for maximum efficiency. The human scientists in the lab watched in awe as Lara single-handedly subdued the eco-terrorists. Her display of strength and skill left no doubt about the potential for human-Zenari cooperation. With the immediate threat neutralized, Lara turned her attention to the terminal. "Dr. Chen, we need to secure the data," she said urgently. Chen nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "The analysis of the deep-sea samples, it's revolutionary. We've discovered a bioluminescent algae that can regenerate damaged coral at an unprecedented rate. This could be the key to saving our oceans." As Chen worked to safeguard the data, Lara's comm unit crackled. "Lara!" Philip's voice came through, strained and breathless. "I've subdued Stone, but this device, I can't shut it down. We need to evacuate." Lara's mind raced, weighing their options. Suddenly, she felt a strange resonance within her body, a connection to the bioluminescent algae they had discovered. An idea formed. "Philip, hold on," she said. "I'm on my way. Dr. Chen, come with me. Bring a sample of the algae." They raced through the facility, the pressure growing more intense with each passing moment. They found Philip struggling with the device's controls, his face beaded with sweat. Lara approached the pressure manipulator, her skin beginning to glow. She placed her hands on the device, closing her eyes in concentration. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin intensified, spreading to encompass the entire machine. "What's happening?" Philip asked, his voice filled with wonder. Dr. Chen watched, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. "Incredible. The algae is responding to her biology. It's adapting the device." The pressure in the room gradually returned to normal as Lara's glow subsided. She opened her eyes, looking as surprised as the others. I'm not sure how, but I think I've neutralized it," she said. Before they could celebrate their victory, a new alarm sounded. The facility's main support structures, damaged in the battle, were beginning to fail. Philip's comm unit lit up with an incoming transmission. Commander Zorax's face appeared on the small screen. "We've detected critical damage to your facility," the Zenari leader said. "We're dispatching a team of engineers to assist. Hold your position." As they waited for the Zenari reinforcements, Philip and Lara found themselves drawn to each other. The adrenaline of battle, the shared triumph over seemingly impossible odds, ignited the passion between them. Their lips met in a fierce kiss, Lara's bioluminescence dancing across her skin and casting a soft glow around them. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of the Zenari engineering team. Human and alien worked side by side, their combined efforts quickly stabilizing the facility. As the immediate danger passed, Philip's comm unit buzzed again. Admiral Hawthorne's face appeared, his expression a mix of relief and urgency. "Tucker, we've got a new situation," Hawthorne said. "Word of the attack and Dr. Chen's discovery has reached the top. Both human and Zenari governments are calling for a summit. You and Ambassador Lara are to attend as key representatives." Philip and Lara exchanged glances, the weight of their new responsibility settling on their shoulders. As they prepared to leave Poseidon's haven, Dr. Chen approached them with startling news. The algae, when exposed to Ambassador Lara's biology, it's exhibiting unprecedented properties, Chen explained, his voice filled with excitement. "This could change everything we thought we knew about coral regeneration and interspecies biology." As they boarded the high-speed submersible bound for the surface, Philip and Lara knew they were heading into uncharted waters, both literally and figuratively. The fate of two worlds now rested in their hands, along with the future of their own relationship. The submersible began its ascent, leaving behind the depths that had brought them together and propelling them towards an uncertain future. As they rose, the vast expanse of the ocean surrounded them, a constant reminder of the monumental task that lay ahead, saving Earth's marine ecosystems and forging a new era of human-Zenari cooperation. The submersible's ascent was swift, the pressure changes causing Philip's ears to pop as they left the depths behind. Lara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed softly in the dim cabin, casting a gentle glow over her features. As they neared the surface, the comm unit crackled to life, Admiral Hawthorne's face appearing on the small screen. "Tucker, Lara, there's been a change of plans," Hawthorne said, his voice tense. "The summit location has been moved due to security concerns. You're to proceed to Atlantis Prime." Philip leaned forward, brow furrowed. "Atlantis Prime? The floating city?" "Affirmative. It's been deemed the most secure and neutral location for the talks. ETA to your new coordinates is 2 hours. As the Admiral signed off, Philip and Lara exchanged glances. The submersible breached the surface, sunlight streaming through the viewports. In the distance, a massive structure rose from the waves. Atlantis Prime. The floating city was a marvel of engineering, a seamless blend of human and Zenari architecture. Towering spires of gleaming metal and translucent alien materials stretched towards the sky, while the city's base seemed to merge with the ocean itself. As they approached, Philip couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. "I've heard about this place, but seeing it in person..." Lara nodded, her eyes wide. "It's beautiful, a true testament to what our species can achieve together." Their submersible docked at one of the city's lower levels. As they disembarked, they were greeted by a mixed team of human and Zenari officials. The air around them felt different, perfectly balanced to accommodate both species' needs. An attendant guided them through the city's winding corridors, past windows that offered breathtaking views of the surrounding ocean. Finally, they arrived at their shared quarters. "The summit begins tomorrow morning," the attendant informed them. "You'll find everything you need here. If you require anything else, please don't hesitate to ask." As the door closed behind them, Philip let out a long breath. "Well, this is certainly not what I expected when we left Poseidon's haven." Lara moved to respond, but suddenly stumbled, clutching her head. Her skin flared with intense bioluminescence, pulsing erratically. "Lara!" Philip rushed to her side, supporting her as she swayed. "What's wrong?" She shook her head, eyes unfocused. I don't know. I feel strange, like I can hear the ocean calling to me. Without hesitation, Philip scooped her up in his arms and headed for the door. We need to get you to a doctor. They rushed through the corridors, Philip following the signs to the medical center. As they burst through the doors, a team of human and Zanari medical staff sprang into action. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a human with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, took charge. What happened? As Philip explained, a Zanari doctor named Zixara joined them, her tentacle-like appendages gently probing Lara's glowing skin. Fascinating, Zixara murmured. I've never seen bioluminescent patterns like this in our species. The two doctors worked in tandem, running a series of tests on Lara. Philip paced anxiously, watching as they conferred in hushed tones, gesturing at holographic displays of Lara's biology. Finally, Dr. Rodriguez turned to them, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. Ambassador Lara, it appears that your exposure to Earth's oceans and the deep-sea algae has triggered a rapid evolution in your biology. Zixara nodded, her eyes glowing with interest. Your body is developing an ability to communicate directly with marine life forms. You're becoming a living bridge between species. Lara sat up, her bioluminescence now pulsing steadily. Is that why I feel this connection to the ocean? Precisely, Rodriguez confirmed. Your nervous system is adapting to interpret and transmit signals that marine life uses to communicate. It's unprecedented. As they discussed the implications of this discovery, alarms suddenly blared throughout the medical center. The floor beneath them shuddered and the lights flickered. Philip's military instincts kicked in. What's happening? A security officer burst into the room, his face pale. We're under attack. Multiple explosions reported throughout the city. All personnel to emergency stations. Chaos erupted as medical staff scrambled to secure patients and equipment. Philip turned to Lara, who was already on her feet, her eyes filled with perseverance. We need to help, she said, her voice steady despite the alarms blaring around them. Philip nodded, his mind racing through possible scenarios. Let's get to the command center. We need to know what we're dealing with. As they rushed out of the medical center, the city shuddered again. Through the windows, they could see plumes of smoke rising from several buildings. The once serene ocean around Atlantis Prime now churned violently, as if reflecting the chaos within the city. They fought their way through panicked crowds, Philip's military training allowing him to navigate the confusion efficiently. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a familiar figure. Captain Marcus Steele, Philip's old comrade from his military days. Tucker! Steele shouted over the din. Thank God you're here. We've got a situation on our hands. Before Philip could respond, another explosion rocked the city, closer this time. The floor beneath them tilted alarmingly, and they could hear the ominous sound of rushing water from somewhere below. The city's support structures are failing, Steele yelled, struggling to maintain his balance. We need to evacuate. Suddenly, Lara gasped, her eyes wide and glowing. The ocean, I can feel something out there. Something big. As if in response to her words, a massive tentacle slammed against a nearby window, the reinforced material barely holding against the impact. In the murky waters beyond, they caught a glimpse of an enormous genetically modified squid, its eyes glowing with an unnatural intelligence. Philip, Lara, and Steele exchanged grim looks. The true nature of the attack was becoming clear, and they knew that the fate of Atlantis Prime, and perhaps the future of human-Zanari relations, now rested in their hands. Without hesitation, Lara dove into the churning waters surrounding Atlantis Prime. Lara! Philip shouted, reaching out as she disappeared beneath the surface. Captain Steele gripped Philip's shoulder. We need to get to the command center. Now! As they raced through the corridors, Philip's mind reeled. The city shuddered around them, the sound of twisting metal and shattering glass echoing through the halls. Beneath the waves, Lara felt her body come alive. The water embraced her, and her skin erupted in a dazzling display of bioluminescence. She propelled herself deeper, guided by an instinct she couldn't explain. The genetically modified squid loomed before her, its massive tentacles lashing out at the city's support structures. Lara focused, channeling her newfound abilities. Pulses of light radiated from her body, forming complex patterns that rippled through the water. The squid paused, its eyes fixed on Lara. She continued her bioluminescent communication, her mind reaching out to the creature. Suddenly, she felt a connection form, a chaotic jumble of thoughts and impulses. In the command center, Philip and Steele burst through the doors. Holographic displays showed the city's critical systems failing one by one. "Status report," Steele barked. A technician looked up, his face pale. "Sir, we're losing structural integrity in sectors 3 through 7. But something's happening with the squids." Philip leaned in, watching the underwater feed. His eyes widened as he saw Lara surrounded by a pulsating aura of light, facing down the massive creatures. "She's communicating with them," he breathed. Outside, Lara's efforts intensified. Her bioluminescent signals resonated with the squid's genetic modifications, creating a feedback loop. The creature's movements became erratic, their attacks on the city faltering. Lara seized the opportunity, redirecting their focus away from Atlantis Prime's critical systems. The squids began to disperse, their tentacles no longer pummeling the city's structures. In the command center, cheers erupted as the attack subsided. Philip felt a surge of pride, but it was quickly tempered by concern for Lara's safety. "I need a diving suit," he announced, turning to Steele. "Now!" Steele nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Follow me." As they sprinted to the nearest airlock, alarms blared once more. A technician's voice crackled over the comm system. "Unknown hostiles approaching. They're not human or Zanari." Philip's eyes sharp as he donned the advanced diving suit. He checked the systems, ensuring everything was operational. "I'll hold them off here," Steele said, drawing his weapon. "Go find Lara." With a nod of thanks, Philip plunged into the turbulent waters. The suit's enhanced propulsion system carried him swiftly through the depths. As he descended, he saw Lara in the distance, her body emanating a mesmerizing array of light patterns. But they weren't alone. Surrounding Lara were several figures unlike anything Philip had ever seen. They moved with unnatural grace, their bodies a disturbing fusion of human and Zanari traits. Bio-organic restraints extended from their limbs, reaching for Lara. Philip's military training kicked in. He activated the suit's weapon systems and charged forward, engaging the hybrid operatives in a fierce underwater battle. His movements were precise, years of combat experience guiding every action. Lara sensed the danger and turned to face their attackers. Together, she and Philip fought in perfect synchronization. Her bioluminescent pulses disoriented the hybrids, while Philip's precise strikes incapacitated them one by one. As the last hybrid fell, Philip and Lara shared a moment of connection, their eyes meeting through the suit's visor. But their reprieve was short-lived. A low, pulsing vibration filled the water. In the distance, a massive device activated, sending out waves of energy that made Philip's suit sensors flash warnings. "An EMP," he realized, his voice tight. "We need to shut it down." Lara nodded, her expression determined. She took Philip's hand, and together they swam towards the device, navigating through a treacherous underwater canyon. As they approached, they saw the complexity of the biomechanical lock protecting the EMP generator. It pulsed with an eerie light, its design clearly requiring both human and Zanari input to disarm. Philip and Lara exchanged a glance, understanding passing between them without words. They placed their hands on the lock, Philip's gloved fingers intertwining with Lara's bioluminescent ones. As they interfaced with the device, their connection deepened. Philip felt a rush of sensations, the pulse of the ocean, the whisper of marine life, the beating of Lara's heart. Their minds merged, working in perfect harmony to unravel the lock's complexities. With a final surge of effort, they deactivated the EMP device. The pulsing energy dissipated, leaving the waters calm once more. Exhausted but triumphant, Philip and Lara began their ascent back to Atlantis Prime. As they neared the surface, they saw the city was not as they left it. Tendrils of bioluminescent material stretched between buildings, pulsing with life. The damage from the attack was being repaired before their eyes by a new form of adaptive marine life. They emerged from the water to find a crowd gathered at the edge of the city. Faces human and Zanari alike stared at them with a mix of awe, fear, and wonder. Philip helped Lara onto the platform, acutely aware of the eyes upon them. A team of medical staff rushed forward, led by Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zixara. As they began to examine Lara, urgent voices called out from the crowd. "Ambassador Lara! Commander Tucker!" It was a summit official, his face grave. "Your presence is required immediately. An emergency session has been called." Philip and Lara exchanged a weary glance. Their ordeal was just getting started. As they followed the official, the whispers of the crowd followed them, a mix of hope and apprehension for what the future might hold. Hold. The fate of two worlds now rested in their hands. As they approached the Grand Assembly Hall, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Zixara intercepted them, their faces a mix of excitement and concern. "Ambassador Lara, Commander Tucker," Dr. Rodriguez began, her voice hushed. "We've completed our analysis of Lara's condition." Dr. Zixara's tentacles waved in what Philip had come to recognize as a gesture of scientific fascination. "Your biology has stabilized, Ambassador. The changes are permanent." Lara's eyes widened, her skin pulsing with a soft blue glow. "So, my ability to communicate with marine life will remain," Dr. Rodriguez confirmed, "and potentially grow stronger." Before they could discuss further, the summit official ushered them into the assembly hall. The room, once a marvel of human and Zenari engineering, now bore signs of the recent battle. Bioluminescent tendrils snaked along the walls, pulsing in sync with the city's systems. Philip and Lara took their places before the panel of leaders. Admiral Hawthorne's stern gaze met Philip's, while Commander Zorax's compound eyes focused intently on Lara. As they recounted their experiences, from the discovery of the deep-sea algae to the battle against the amalgam, Philip noticed the room growing tense. Whispers rippled through the audience, a mix of awe and apprehension. Suddenly, Lara stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the transparent walls beyond which schools of bioluminescent fish swam. She raised her hand, and her skin erupted in a dazzling display of light. The fish responded, swirling in intricate patterns that mirrored Lara's bioluminescence. Gasps echoed through the hall. Even Admiral Hawthorne leaned forward, his usual stoic expression replaced by one of wonder. The moment was shattered by a commotion at the entrance. Ezra Stone burst in, his eyes wild and a device clutched in his hand. Security forces scrambled to intercept him, but he held up the device threateningly. "Stop!" Stone's voice cracked with desperation. "I've planted bioweapons throughout Atlantis Prime. One wrong move, and I'll release a pathogen that will turn every bit of marine life into a nightmare." Chaos erupted in the hall. Philip instinctively moved to shield Lara, his mind racing through possible strategies. Stone's gaze fixed on Lara, a mixture of fear and greed in his eyes. Your abilities are the key. Come with me, let me study you, and I'll disarm the weapons." Lara stepped forward, her voice calm despite the tension. "Ezra, you don't understand what you're doing. The ecosystem is already adapting, evolving. We can work with it, not against it." Stone's finger hovered over the device's trigger. "No, it's unnatural. It needs to be controlled, purified." Philip caught Captain Steele's eye across the room and nodded subtly. As Steele began coordinating the evacuation, Philip turned to Lara. "We need to split up. I'll handle the bioweapons we can find. You focus on using your connection to the marine life." Lara squeezed his hand, her skin pulsing with drive. "Be careful, Philip." As Lara made her way to the central water reservoir, Philip assembled a team to search for the hidden bioweapons. They raced through Atlantis Prime's corridors, following leads from security scans and Lara's insights transmitted through their comm system. Philip's team encountered resistance in a maintenance shaft. A group of Stone's loyalists, their eyes filled with fanatical zeal, opened fire. Philip ducked behind a bulkhead, returning fire with practiced precision. The close quarters made the fight intense, but Philip's experience gave him the edge. Meanwhile, Lara dove into the central reservoir, her body illuminating the water around her. She reached out with her mind, connecting with the smallest organisms in the water. She felt the ecosystem's response to the bioweapon pathogens, a slow but steady process of neutralization. Lara focused, channeling her energy into the water. Her bioluminescence intensified, spreading through the reservoir like a web of light. The adaptive properties of the marine life accelerated, breaking down the pathogens at a rapidly increasing rate. Back in the corridors, Philip's team had neutralized most of the bioweapons. They converged on the location of the final device, only to find Stone waiting for them. The scientist's body rippled with unnatural strength, the result of illegal genetic modifications. Stone lunged at Philip, his enhanced speed catching the commander off guard. They grappled fiercely, crashing into walls and equipment. Despite Stone's augmentations, Philip's combat experience allowed him to hold his own. As they fought, Philip noticed the last bioweapon blinking ominously nearby. With a surge of effort, he broke free from Stone's grasp and lunged for the device. His fingers flew over the controls, years of training kicking in as he worked to disarm it. Stone roared in frustration and charged, but Philip was ready. He sidestepped at the last moment, using Stone's momentum to slam him into the wall. The scientist crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The bioweapon's lights faded as Philip completed the disarming sequence. He allowed himself a moment of relief before calling in a security team to apprehend Stone. As Philip made his way back to the assembly hall, he saw Lara emerging from the reservoir. His breath caught in his throat. Her body shimmered with intricate bioluminescent patterns, more vibrant and complex than ever before. Schools of fish swam in formation around her, responding to her subtle gestures. Their eyes met across the room, a silent understanding passing between them. They had faced the impossible and come out stronger. But as the assembled leaders of both species began to approach them, Philip knew their journey was just the beginning. The future of human-Zanari relations and Earth's oceans hung in the balance, and he and Lara were now at the center of it all. As cameras flashed and questions flew, Philip took Lara's hand, ready to face whatever came next, together. As cameras flashed and questions flew, Philip took Lara's hand, ready to face whatever came next. The crowd's clamor faded as Admiral Hawthorne stepped forward, his weathered face etched with a mix of concern and commitment. "Commander Tucker, Ambassador Lara," he said, his voice cutting through the din, "we have a proposition for you both." Minutes later, they found themselves in a private briefing room, surrounded by the top brass of both human and Zanari forces. Commander Zorax's tentacles rippled with anticipation as Admiral Hawthorne outlined their proposal. "We're establishing a joint human-Zanari task force," Hawthorne explained, his eyes fixed on Philip and Lara. "Its mission, to create adaptive marine sanctuaries across Earth's oceans. We want you two to lead it." Lara's skin pulsed with a soft blue glow, her excitement palpable. Philip felt a surge of adrenaline at the prospect of such a monumental undertaking. They exchanged a glance, years of unspoken communication, allowing them to reach a decision in seconds. "We're in," Philip said firmly, Lara nodding in agreement. The next few weeks passed in a blur of intensive training and preparation. Philip found himself submerged in advanced underwater combat simulations, honing his skills against virtual opponents that moved with uncanny precision. Each day pushed him to his limits, but the thought of the mission ahead drove him forward. Lara, meanwhile, spent countless hours with Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zixara, delving deeper into the mysteries of her evolving abilities. In a specially designed tank, she practiced manipulating complex bioluminescent patterns, learning to communicate with an ever-expanding array of marine life. During a rare moment of respite, Philip found Lara on the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the vibrant ocean beyond. As he approached, she turned to him, her eyes shimmering with an otherworldly light. "Philip," she said softly, reaching for his hand, "I never imagined this is where we'd end up when we first met." He intertwined his fingers with hers, feeling the gentle pulse of her bioluminescence. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't change a thing." Their moment of peace was shattered by the blaring of alarms. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the intercom, urgent and tense. "Commander Tucker, Ambassador Lara, report to the war room immediately." They rushed through the corridors of Atlantis Prime, the city's bioluminescent tendrils pulsing in angry red. In the war room, they found a grim-faced Admiral Hawthorne standing before a holographic display of the Mariana Trench. "The amalgam has resurfaced," Hawthorne said without preamble. We've detected a hidden base in the trench. Intelligence suggests they're developing a new biological weapon, one that could corrupt the entire adaptive marine ecosystem. Philip's eyes sharp as he studied the holographic map. What's our move, sir? We're accelerating the sanctuary mission, Hawthorne replied, but we're adding a covert element. You'll establish the first sanctuary in the Pacific while searching for the amalgam's base. Lara stepped forward, her skin rippling with tenacity. We'll need a vessel capable of withstanding extreme depths. Commander Zorax's tentacles waved in agreement. We have just the thing. The HMS Nautilus, a submarine that combines the best of human and Zanari technology. Days later, Philip stood on the bridge of the Nautilus, marveling at the seamless integration of two vastly different technological approaches. Lara joined him, her presence bringing a soft glow to the advanced control panels. As the massive bay doors opened, revealing the vast expanse of the Pacific, Philip gave the order. Take us down. The Nautilus sliced through the waves, descending into the heart of Earth's largest ocean. Lara's abilities grew stronger with each passing moment, her consciousness expanding to encompass the teeming life around them. There, she said, pointing to a cluster of dying coral reefs. That's where we'll establish the first sanctuary. Philip nodded, guiding the Nautilus into position. As Lara began the delicate process of integrating the new adaptive ecosystem, Philip oversaw the deployment of monitoring equipment. Within hours, the effects were visible. Bleached coral began to show signs of regeneration, and schools of fish darted among the rejuvenated structures. Their success was short-lived. As they prepared to move to the next location, the Nautilus's sensors lit up with warnings. A massive swarm of genetically modified creatures burst from the depths, surrounding the submarine in a writhing mass of tentacles and teeth. Evasive maneuvers, Philip shouted, his hands flying over the controls. The Nautilus responded instantly, diving and weaving through the swarm with impossible agility. Lara pressed her hands against the viewport, her skin pulsing with intense patterns. I'm trying to communicate with them, she said, her voice strained. Their minds are fractured, twisted. As Philip guided the Nautilus through a treacherous underwater canyon, Lara's efforts began to show results. Confusion spread through the swarm, creating gaps in their formation. Seizing the opportunity, Philip pushed the engines to their limit, breaking free of the attack. We need to find their base, Lara said, her eyes glowing with an inner fire. Before they can unleash whatever they're creating? Philip nodded grimly, setting a course for the Mariana Trench. As the Nautilus plunged into the abyss, the weight of their mission pressed down on them both. The fate of Earth's oceans, and perhaps the future of human-Zanari relations, rested in their hands. The darkness of the trench enveloped them, broken only by the Nautilus's powerful lights and the occasional bioluminescent creature. Lara's connection to the marine environment grew stronger, her senses extending far beyond the submarine's advanced sensors. Suddenly she gasped. Philip, I can feel it. The weapon, it's worse than we thought. If they release it, it won't just affect the oceans. It could disrupt Earth's entire ecosystem. Philip's grip tightened on the controls. Then we'll stop them, he said, his voice filled with quiet dedication. Whatever it takes. As they approached the coordinates of the amalgam's base, hidden beneath layers of camouflage technology, Philip and Lara exchanged a look of understanding. The real battle was about to begin, and they would face it together. As they approached the hidden base, the Nautilus's advanced sensors began to pick up faint energy signatures. Philip's hands tightened on the controls, his eyes scanning the murky depths for any sign of danger. Lara, can you sense anything? He asked, voice low with tension. Lara closed her eyes, her skin pulsing with intricate patterns of light. Yes, she whispered. I can feel life. So much life. But it's different, twisted somehow. Philip nodded grimly. The amalgam's experiments. We need to shut them down before they can release that weapon. As they neared their target, Lara's eyes snapped open. Philip, wait, she exclaimed. I have an idea. Her skin blazed with light as she reached out with her mind, connecting with the vast network of marine life surrounding them. Schools of fish, pods of whales, and even giant squid responded to her call, converging on their position. "What are you doing?" Philip asked, watching in awe as the water around them came alive with bioluminescent creatures. "Creating a living shield," Lara explained, her voice strained with concentration. "It will provide cover for your team and protect the Nautilus." Philip quickly relayed the plan to his strike team. Moments later, they deployed from the Nautilus, their sleek underwater gear allowing them to move swiftly through the water. The swarm of marine life Lara had summoned enveloped them, obscuring their approach from the amalgam sensors. As Philip's team infiltrated the base through a hidden access point, Lara maintained her connection to the sea life, coordinating their movements to create distractions and draw attention away from the infiltrators. Inside the base, Philip and his squad encountered immediate resistance. Hybrid soldiers, their bodies a grotesque fusion of human and marine characteristics, opened fire with advanced underwater weapons. The team took cover behind bulkheads, returning fire with practiced precision. "Alpha team, push forward," Philip ordered through their comm system. "Beta team, flank left and secure those holding tanks." They fought their way through winding corridors, the walls pulsing with an unnatural organic energy. In vast chambers filled with experimental biotech equipment, they discovered row upon row of tanks containing more genetically modified creatures. "My God!" one of Philip's team members whispered. "They were planning to unleash an army." Back on the Nautilus, Lara suddenly gasped, her body jerking as if struck. "Philip!" she called out urgently through their comm link. "They're activating the weapon! I can feel it! It's like a poison spreading through the water." Philip gritted his teeth. "We're almost at the central control room. Can you slow it down?" Lara's brow furrowed in concentration. "I'll try. I'm going to use the adaptive ecosystem to create a barrier around the containment area." As Lara focused her abilities, Philip's team approached the control room. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and a figure unlike anything they had ever seen emerged. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body a perfect blend of human and Zanari physiology. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across its skin, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intelligence. "I am Nexus," the being announced, its voice resonating with power. "You will go no further." Philip raised his weapon. "Stand down," he commanded. "It's over." Nexus smiled, a chilling expression on its alien features. "No, Commander Tucker, it has only begun." With blinding speed, Nexus launched itself at Philip. The two crashed into a nearby console, grappling fiercely. Philip's military training gave him an edge, but Nexus's enhanced strength made it a formidable opponent. As they fought, Lara's voice came through the comm, strained but determined. "Philip, I've managed to tap into the base's biotech systems. I can help you." Suddenly, the gravity in the room shifted, throwing Nexus off balance. Philip seized the opportunity, landing a solid blow that sent the hybrid staggering back. The battle raged on, with Lara manipulating the base's internal systems to aid Philip's team. She rerouted power, trapping groups of amalgam forces behind sealed doors, and altered environmental controls to disorient the enemy. Philip and Nexus continued their fierce combat, trading blows that would have incapacitated normal humans. But both were far from normal, their bodies pushed to the limits of human and Zanari capability. With a burst of strength, Philip managed to overpower Nexus, pinning the hybrid leader to the ground. "It's finished," he panted. Nexus's eyes flared with defiance. "If I fall, I'll take you all with me." Its hand shot out, activating a hidden control panel. Alarms blared throughout the base as a computerized voice announced, "Self-destruct sequence initiated. 5 minutes to detonation." Philip's eyes widened in horror. "Lara, the weapon!" "I'm on it," she replied. "I'm directing the marine life to form a containment field around the base. It won't stop the blast entirely, but it should mitigate the weapon's dispersal." Philip turned to his team. "Secure that weapon. We've got 5 minutes to get it and ourselves out of here." As the base began to shake and alarms screamed, Philip's team raced to locate and secure the biological weapon. They found it in a heavily fortified chamber, its container pulsing with ominous energy. 2 minutes remaining," the computerized voice announced as they carefully disconnected the weapon from its housing. "Lara, we've got it," Philip called out. "Guide us out of here." Using her enhanced senses and connection to the marine life outside, Lara directed the team through the crumbling base. They sprinted through collapsing corridors, narrowly avoiding falling debris and bursting pipes. 30 seconds, the voice intoned as they reached the exit point. With a final burst of speed, Philip and his team launched themselves into the open water. The Nautilus, guided by Lara's abilities, maneuvered through the chaos to retrieve them. As they were pulled into the safety of the submarine, a massive explosion rocked the water behind them. Lara's face was a mask of concentration as she coordinated the living containment field, struggling to hold back the full force of the blast and the weapon's dispersal. "We did it," Philip breathed, removing his gear. "But at what cost?" Lara's expression was grim. "We contained most of it, but some of the weapon has leaked into the surrounding waters. It's not over yet." As the Nautilus rose towards the surface, Philip and Lara exchanged a look of perseverance. They had won a significant battle, but the war for Earth's oceans was not nearly finished. The challenges ahead would test not only their abilities, but also the strength of their bond and the future of human-Zanari relations. The Nautilus surfaced near a fleet of waiting ships, its emergence from the depths greeted by a flurry of activity. As Philip and Lara disembarked, they were immediately ushered onto a high-speed transport bound for the emergency summit. The Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with tension as they entered. Rows of human and Zanari leaders filled the tiered seating, their faces etched with concern. Admiral Hawthorne and Commander Zorax met them at the entrance, their expressions grave. "They're waiting for you," Hawthorne said, gesturing towards the podium. Philip and Lara exchanged a look before stepping forward. The assembly fell silent as they took their positions. Philip cleared his throat. "Leaders of Earth and Zanari, we come before you with urgent news. While we've neutralized the Amalgam's base, their bioweapon has partially leaked into the surrounding waters." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lara stepped forward, her skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "We have a plan to neutralize the remaining particles," she said, her voice clear and steady. "But it comes with significant risks." As Lara outlined her strategy to dive into the heart of the affected area and use her evolved abilities to guide the adaptive ecosystem, the assembly erupted into heated debate. "It's too dangerous," shouted a human representative. "We can't risk losing you, Lara." A Zanari leader countered, "But can we afford to let this bioweapon spread unchecked?" Philip raised his hands, calling for order. "I understand your concerns, but we don't have the luxury of time. This is our best chance to prevent a global catastrophe." Suddenly, the hall's massive view screens flared to life, displaying alarming data streams. The bioweapons spread was accelerating at an unprecedented rate. "It's reaching critical ocean currents," a scientist announced, her voice tight with fear. "If it hits those, it could spread across the entire planet within days." The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. After a tense moment, the summit leaders reluctantly agreed to Philip and Lara's proposal. Within hours, they found themselves aboard the USS Poseidon, an advanced research vessel stationed above the affected area. As the crew made final preparations, Philip and Lara stood at the ship's railing, looking out over the churning waters. Lara turned to Philip, her eyes shimmering with an otherworldly light. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. "This process, it might change me in ways we can't predict." Philip took her hands in his. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." They shared a deep, passionate kiss before Lara stepped back. With a final nod to Philip, she dove gracefully into the water. Philip rushed to the monitoring station, his eyes fixed on Lara's vital signs as she descended. The ocean around her came alive with bioluminescence, countless organisms responding to her call. As Lara reached the contaminated zone, her body began to glow even brighter. She stretched out her arms, channeling her energy into the surrounding ecosystem. The water swirled with light as microscopic creatures swarmed around her, absorbing and transforming the bioweapon particles. On the ship's screens, satellite imagery showed the contaminated area slowly shrinking. Philip allowed himself a moment of hope before Lara's life signs suddenly spiked dangerously. Without hesitation, he grabbed a diving suit. "I'm going in after her," he announced, strapping on the gear. Philip plunged into the water, surrounded by a dazzling vortex of bioluminescent life. As he descended, he saw Lara at the center of a pulsating sphere of light, her body seeming to merge with the very essence of the ocean. Fighting against the swirling currents, Philip reached Lara. Her eyes were closed, her expression serene despite the obvious strain on her body. He wrapped his arms around her and kicked hard, propelling them towards the surface. As they broke through the waves, medical teams rushed to their aid. Lara was immediately whisked away to the ship's advanced medical bay, leaving Philip dripping and breathless on the deck. Days passed and Lara remained in a coma-like state. Her body continued to undergo mysterious changes, puzzling the team of scientists and doctors, working tirelessly to understand her condition. Philip refused to leave her side, holding vigil by her bed. A week crawled by, each hour stretching into eternity for Philip. Then finally, Lara's eyes fluttered open. She gasped, her gaze darting around the room before settling on Philip's face. "Philip," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. I felt everything." As Lara regained her strength, she described how her mind had temporarily merged with the collective consciousness of Earth's oceans. The experience had granted her an even deeper understanding of marine life and the intricate balance of the planet's ecosystems. Extensive tests confirmed that the bioweapon had been successfully neutralized. Moreover, the adaptive ecosystem had spread far beyond the initial sanctuary, accelerating the regeneration of damaged marine habitats across the globe. As news of their success spread, Philip and Lara found themselves at the center of a media storm. Reporters clamored for interviews, eager to hear about their daring mission and its far-reaching implications. But for Philip and Lara, the most significant change was the shift in human-Zanari relations. Leaders from both species, inspired by their partnership, began drafting a historic treaty to establish a joint environmental task force. As they stood together at a press conference, fielding questions about their next steps, Philip couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. He glanced at Lara, her skin still shimmering with newfound abilities, and felt a surge of pride and love. Their journey was just the beginning, but they had taken a crucial step towards a brighter future for both their species and the planet they now called home.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.